In my view, if Kenya's situation ends up in bloodshed, one of the people that history will put right at the front to stand accused is an American by the name of Robert Frank Kodek. Kodek's handling of the Kenyan situation has caused much more chaos. Instead of trying to help the situation, he has ended up making things much worse. Now, somebody may argue that actually I should not be talking about Kodek. I should be talking about American policy in Africa. I should be talking how about the United States of America has always interfered in Africa and caused chaos for their own selfish gain and for their own selfish interest. I should be talking about the Congo, where the Americans were involved in the assassination of a man called Patrice Lumumba. Not only assassination, oh boy, very brutal. Let me just send it there. Let me not go into things like how his body was exhumed, cut into pieces and burnt in a drum of acid. And for what? Because Congo and a certain mineral in Congo is a matter of national security in the US. And so somebody can easily argue, that I should be talking about America. But no, I say no, because as far as the American administration is concerned, who is the authority on Kenya? It's Bwana Kodek. Before they make a decision, who do they consult? Bwana Kodek, because he's their man on the ground. He's expected to know exactly what is happening, and is expected to make the right call on behalf of the nation he represents in Kenya. Now, the latest very strange thing to come out of Kodek's Kenya is that after the major media houses were switched off, plucked off air, the Americans were silent. That was not even strange, bizarre, because the Americans have always had a reputation for defending freedom of speech, human rights. I mean, the Americans are would have expected the Americans to start talking about the Kenyan Bill of Rights. Indeed, it is no secret that there are a lot of things in the 2010 Kenyan Constitution photocopied, copy-pasted directly from the American Constitution. Now, finally, the Americans spoke yesterday, 4 days after the Kenyan media went dark, as a result of the Kenyan government switching off or pulling the plug off the socket. And one would have thought they would have come out with a hard-hitting statement on freedom of the press. But no, instead, they came out with a very, very strange statement that focused on criticizing the swearing in of His Excellency President Raila Odinga. They were talking about Raila Odinga and the opposition using constitutional means. Constitutional means, my foot. Were constitutional means used to rig the August state elections? To completely change the figures so that the correct figures remained buried in a server? Something which the Americans are very much aware of. Indeed, the Americans were fully aware of the results in the server long before they became public to any Kenyan. I'm talking about the real results. Now, I'm convinced this statement was released after the media started complaining and asking, why are the Americans not saying anything about the Jubilee government's clampdown on the media? Because in that very statement, in the same statement, there was what I can only call a very playful slap on the wrist on the Jubilee government, for switching off the main media stations. So what's really going on here? Now, in case you have not noticed, and in case you do not know, it is now very clear that the United States of America is not a neutral player in the Kenyan crisis. Now, I appreciate the fact, and indeed I've said this in this channel a few times before, I appreciate the fact that the US ambassador to Kenya is not in Kenya for the interest of Kenyans. Just like the Kenyan ambassador to the United States is not in the United States for the interest of Americans. One has to look after the interests of their country, their home country. Yeah, I accept. That's granted. That's obvious. However, an envoy in fulfilling his mandate should never prop up an illegitimate government against the will of the vast majority of Kenyans. Now, there are many reasons why they should not do this, but chief reason number one is the fact that it will always backfire. Yeah, it will always backfire, so that at the end of the day, American interests in Kenya will in fact be damaged. The objectives and the interests the Americans are trying to protect will end up not being protected. The very opposite will happen. Yes, America is a superpower, no doubt about that. Yeah, they have massive power. Yes, but mark my words, when the dust finally settles on the Kenyan situation, the Americans will find themselves very much disadvantaged in doing business with the new political order that will be in Kenya. I have no idea what that political order will be. Yeah, I have already told you many times on this channel that I believe the new order, finally when the dust settles, will neither be NASA nor Jubilee. I've said that, yeah, and a lot of people still think I'm crazy, but let's wait and see. Anyway, my point is, the new political order, yeah, will be firmly based on the will of the vast majority of the Kenyan people. And the vast majority of Kenyan people have been messed up big time by Bwana Frank Robert Kodek. But even before that, there's a very huge danger that what Bwana Kodek is doing and championing in Kenya will cause Americans' allies, especially in Europe, massive problems. Yeah? Now, Europe already has a very huge problem of immigrants from Africa. Okay? It's a very sad story. What is happening? People are just drowning in the ocean, yeah, trying to get into Europe. Yeah? It seems that people from a lot of African countries, not Kenya, are saying to themselves, Europe or I die, and are risking their lives in the deep seas, yeah, together with their families, very sad affair, yeah, to try to get into Europe and to a better life. Now, if things continue to go south in Kenya, yeah, with a lot of help from Bwana Kodek, what will happen is that refugee crisis will be worse. Why? Because Kenya is already soaking in some of those refugees who would have otherwise gone to Europe. Kenya is a preferred destination for very many Africans in war-torn countries, yeah? And so a chaotic Kenya, a Kenya which is no longer safe for refugees, will mean that all those refugees will be diverted where? To Europe. And not only that, Europe will also be forced to take in a lot of refugees from Kenya. Don't fool yourself, Bwana Kodek. This is not 2007. Yeah? It is not. This is not Kenya 2008. It's definitely not. And the writing should have been very clearly up there on the wall for you a long time ago. Now, it is very interesting that there are people who are now saying that Bwana Kodek is solely responsible for ending Kalonzo Musyoka's political career. Yeah, there are those who claim that he played a major role in ensuring that the three other principals did not make it to Uhuru Park. This is probably a good time to take a quick look at some highlights from a report I've produced exclusively from Club 1999. Take a look, I'll be back in a bit. Kenyan situation is in the hands of the people. It is firmly in the hands of the people, whatever Bwana Kodek does. But I'm just wondering, what kind of legacy will Bwana Kodek leave behind? Yeah? What will people say about him? Yeah? And his record in the foreign service? From where I sit, it looks like people will say, this is the man who fueled the Tunisian revolution. Yeah? And then this is also the same man who fueled the Kenyan revolution. That is my view, and I could be wrong, but I could also be right. Until next time, this is Kshs Kumekucha.